The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is no substitute for professional care by your doctor or your qualified healthcare professional. Never disregard or delay professional medical advice because of something you've heard on this podcast or in any linked material. Guests who speak on this podcast express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions. Dr. Shirley neither endorses nor opposes any particular opinion discussed on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, practice, institution, or other entity with which Dr. Shirley may be affiliated.
Welcome to Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty. This podcast is curated by Dr. Shirley Madeir, MD, as the definitive source of holistic wellness through beauty.
Welcome to part 2 of the Forever Fab podcast with my guest, Marcellas Reynolds. Marcellas, you write about supreme women, supreme models, supreme life, living people. When did you realize that you wanted to write about and document the legacies of people of color and women of color in fashion, music, and Hollywood? When did you sort of coalesce all of the experiences that you've had in these industries and say to yourself, yep, it's time to write an epic book, beautiful book about these women?
Models was epic in its scope. And what I tried to do turned out to be so much more than I thought it could be. What I end up sitting in with this is that, I came from nothing and I always wanted to be more. I always wanted to tell my own story because so often people told my story for me. Oh, you're this or you're that. And it was always negative. And I was like, no, this is who I am. And I'm going to show you who I am. So much of my youth was about like, I need to be famous. I need to be first. I need to be right. Me. So the great joy of my life now is that I turned a corner away from that. And I found so much joy and pride in telling the stories of others. And if you ask me, my biggest success is these books. It's not having been a successful model. It's not having been the first ever out gay Black man to appear on a major network reality show. It's not all these firsts I had. It was big. It was definitely big. And to reality fans and to fans of Big Brother, that's huge. To me, that was just another acting gig. That was another door I was walking through to get me to Hollywood or to get me to the next space. It wasn't that big to me. It wasn't that, being the first Black man, out gay Black man to have a contract with E, to have his own show on E, to have his own show on BET, to have his own multiple shows on Style Network. It was like I was blazing these trails, but it was never enough because I was always wanting more. You know what I mean? And so I wasn't even enjoying the things that I was getting because I had my eyes on what was coming next. And that is a recipe for unhappiness.
Yes, agreed.
That is a recipe for it's never enough. It's never good enough.
Yeah.
And honestly, right before Supreme Models happened, all of that was stripped away from me. God took all of those labels that were so important to me away from me.
How so?
He took celebrity fashion stylist because when I morphed out of being a model, I became a fashion stylist.
That's right.
Because I did reality television, I became celebrity fashion stylist, Marcellas Reynolds. Because I had notoriety on my own as a TV personality, and because I was doing celebrities like Sharon Stone and Justin Timberlake and Rebecca Hall and Jayma Mays and Eddie Cibrian and yada, yada, yada. Great. Good for me. I'm a celebrity stylist, whatever. That didn't mean anything to me, but it was very lucrative.
Yes.
And so in 2018, my biggest client, because I had pivoted to doing e-commerce instead of working with celebrities. So I was working for stores like Macy's and H&M, and I was working for Meyer and Kohl's, and I was like I used my celebrity stylist stature to go to these like smaller brands and work 5 days a week, for a month or 2 months at a time, and make 6 figures as a stylist.
Wow.
Well, in 2018, my two biggest clients, one went bankrupt and one hired an on-staff person.
Wow.
And so I wasn't needed anymore. I went from making 6 figures to making nothing as a stylist. And then I tried to pivot. It's jarring, especially for me, who doesn't save money and spends every dime he gets. Flying first class, this hotel, that hotel, the best of everything to make up for being poor when I grew up.
Yeah, it never leaves, does it?
It never leaves. You're always leading with that. It's always, I have to be well dressed. I have to be wearing a Rolex. It's almost like I walk into rooms and I felt like a rube. I never felt good enough because I was Black, because I was gay, and also because I was the only one. You know what I mean?
Yes, so, I understand.
I was self-medicating in a lot of ways.
In a way, yes.
With clothing and things and experiences, and I tried to pivot back to television, going back to being a host, and nobody was interested in seeing me.
Wow.
And it was like God took all of those fake labels away.
Yeah.
And the only thing I had left was the idea for the book. Wow. And when I accepted that, when I humbled myself and asked him what was next, all the doors opened for the book to happen easily.
Wow. Isn't that something? But you have to submit.
I had to submit. I had to let go of the trappings of what I thought I was supposed to be, what I wanted to be.
Yeah.
There was literally a day where it just hit me. I lost everything. Yeah. Where were the friends? Where was the money?
Right.
Where were the lovers? Where was the restaurants? Where was the food? Where was everybody? The only thing I had was me. And I asked God, why, God, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened? What did I do, God?
Mm-hmm. Or what did you not do?
Or what did I not do?
Right.
But what I knew was I had to keep going.
Yes.
And I did. And it got easier because that was what I was supposed to be doing. The books were what I was supposed to be doing. And what I understand now is that if I had kept going the way I was going, I was never going to write the first book. That means I would have never written the second book or the third book.
Or the third book.
The documentary.
That is a supreme journey. Fittingly so. When you were doing research for your latest book, was there anything that you discovered about either a particular group or a certain time period when, women were doing their thing in that industry, or from something that you learned about one woman in particular that actually surprised you? Any interesting fact that actually surprised you? Like, whoa, really?
Well, the new book, Supreme Sirens, Iconic Black Women Who Revolutionized Music.
Music, yes.
Which I think is the last
fabulous cover.
With Missy on the cover.
I know, I love Missy.
The last
I can't stand the rain. Okay.
Against my window. Listen, which is the last book in the trilogy.
Yes.
It's everything, right? It's music is such a part of all of our lives. I don't care, white, Black, Latino, Indian, Native American, and it's just a part of our lives from the time we're born until the time we die. Our
and you know
mothers
what?
sing us lullabies. Hymns are played when we're put to rest.
And you know what? Music makes you lose control.
Go. All right, we have to stop with the Missy thing. Okay. So I would say the one thing I learned specifically, I mean, there's so many stories that I can't single out one story, but I will say this. My whole point of writing this book is that the Black female performer is never one thing. She is a multi-hyphenate that changes the space wherever she goes. Ooh. So you have someone like, I always start with Josephine Baker. Because for me, Josephine Baker was born in the 1890s, and she came to prominence in the early 1900s. She's the first Black woman to star in a major motion picture. But what Josephine Baker did was so much more than being a singer, so much more than being a dancer, so much more than being an actress. She was a true performance artist.
And a courageous one.
When she walked on stage at the Folies Bergère in Paris and performed in a banana skirt, topless, and brought out cheetahs and gave Paris this African experience like Black American woman, that was performance art.
Yes.
And so we see that if there was no Josephine, there wouldn't be a Diana Ross. If there was no Josephine, there wouldn't be a Grace Jones. And if there weren't a Diana Ross and a Grace Jones, there would not be a Beyonce and a Rihanna. There would not be a Janelle Monáe.
Right.
It's like the Black woman changes not just the face of music, she changes music.
And the essence of it.
And she changes performance and the essence of performance. She creates something that didn't exist before her. When you have somebody like Ella Fitzgerald sing jazz, it's very different than when a white musician sings jazz. When Ella Fitzgerald sang A Tisket a Tasket, which was basically a lullaby, and turned it into a jazz standard that at that time sold 1 million records.
Unbelievable.
That's what we know as jazz today. That's what we know as Sarah Vaughan and Nancy Wilson, and now Samara Joy, who has used TikTok to become this like Grammy-winning, multi-million selling jazz singer. That's what Black women do. It's so strange we're having this conversation about whether Beyonce can release a country album. It's like Black folks in general started country music. It is the music of the hymns that we were singing when we were picking your cotton and creating the United States out of nothing. It is the music that we bought over when we came over on the slave ships, because we bought the banjo over here. So don't talk to us about Black music, and don't talk to us about country music or jazz music or any music that you think is yours. Bluegrass, country, whatever you want to call it, because it was ours. Blues. Don't talk to us about the blues.
Okay. Right. We're still singing
jazz. Don't talk to us about jazz. That's ours. Anything. You didn't have music before we existed. I don't know what you were doing, but it wasn't what we did. Or maybe you were doing something that was like that, and we took it and we made it an art form.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying.
So I love that your books, while they talk about, they really are an homage to women from the past all the way through to current fashion models, musicians, screen sirens. I love that your books capture all of that and remind us that there were people who came before us who helped to facilitate what we're currently doing now. So it really is an homage to the past, but also the present and the future, because how exciting is it to know this is what happened in the past, this is what's going on now, and oh my gosh, the future is bright. So it provides hope just through a different avenue. It's very interesting how you do that. You weave hope through all the stories that you tell about each and every one of these legendary women.
What I want to do is I want to give you the good and the bad.
Yeah.
My mother used to say, you can't have a testimony without a test.
Yeah.
So I want to tell the whole story.
Yeah.
Because it's never easy. It's
Right.
never easy for anybody to become successful in any
Right.
field, no
Right.
matter who or what they are. But it's
Amen.
even harder for women, and it's even harder for women and people of color, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yes, it is.
I want to give you the good, and I want to give you the bad. I want to give you Josephine Baker, and I want to give you the story of how she conquered Paris, but how she had to leave the United States to do it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how she died penniless. I want to
Yeah.
give you the story of Dorothy Dandridge, who was the first Black woman nominated for Best Actress, who also died alone and basically
Yeah.
penniless in a
Mm.
in a motel or a hotel here in Hollywood. You
Right.
have to have. It's almost like you have to. It's almost like they're morality tales in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's like I want you to see the highest high and the lowest low, but I also want you to know that because they lived that life, it matters.
Yes.
What's really important for me with all these books, and I'll talk about Supreme Sirens in because it's the new one,
Yes.
is yes, it's for really young Black girls, right? I want them to go to a bookstore and look at the Tom Ford book. I want
Yes.
you to go to a bookstore and look at the Rihanna book that's $225. Look at
Yes.
the Stephen Meisel book. Look at the Chanel book. Look at all these amazing books that maybe like you can't afford, but
Mhm.
dreaming is free.
Yes.
So go and look at those books and get inspiration. And then you can walk over to my book, which is sitting next to the books I just mentioned. And
Yes.
my book,
Kudos.
which is relatively inexpensive because the publisher, Abrams, and I decided to price our books so that anyone that wanted that book could get that book.
More
It's
accessible.
a fraction of the cost of those other books, even though the quality is there
Yes,
and
it
the
is.
content is there.
Yes, it is.
So buy that book because you want to know something about Nicki Minaj or Lizzo or Chloe and Haley or Ari Lennox or
Yeah.
Tiana Taylor or any of these new girls,
Yeah.
Cardi B or whoever.
Yeah.
But when you get my book, you're also going to learn about Josephine Baker. You're going to learn about Ma Rainey. You're going to learn about Bessie Smith. You're going to learn about Leontine Price. You're going to learn about Ella Fitzgerald. You're going to learn about Sarah Vaughan. You're going to learn about Patti LaBelle and the groups that she was in before she became Patti LaBelle in the 80s. You're going to learn something about the history. You're going to learn about the ancestry, because we wouldn't be where we are today if that woman that lived before us didn't open the door and make it easier for the woman that came after her.
Absolutely. But you're telling the highs and the lows of each of these women really helps to make them more human. And because we tend to look at a lot of these celebrities as like, oh, untouchable, unreachable. And you're telling their story, the highs and the lows, allows us to see them from a slightly different perspective. Like, wow, they went through some hardship. Wow, oh my gosh, they're more human to us. And in seeing and feeling that they're more human, those little girls, those little boys and girls that you talked about being able to, access the stories, they're maybe going to be able to think they're human. So am I. I can do that too.
I can do that. I can,
Right? That's so
I can
powerful.
fail and I can get back up.
Yes.
I can be one thing one day and transform into something the next day.
Yes.
I am only bound by my dreams and my work ethic.
And my perceptions of limitations that either I put on myself or others put on me. So
Done.
there's so much richness in these books. Oh my gosh. But I only have a few questions left, so I want to get to these. So we talked earlier about celebrity experiences, and I know you said you had many of them. So could you tell me one more celebrity experience that is just forever going to stay with you? I know you have many, but you have to choose one.
Okay, since we're talking about Supreme Sirens,
Yes.
and it's so top of mind for me, the last line in the book that I wrote is for Whitney Houston, Phyllis Hyman, Minnie Riperton, and Tina Turner, forever. And that is the most important line in the book for me, because those four women are these incredible women that maybe some people don't know and maybe don't know what they contributed. We all know that Whitney Houston is if not the greatest singer ever, one of the greatest singers ever.
Yes.
And we know how she started, and we know how she lived her life, and we know how
she ended. Yeah.
And that is truly sad.
Yeah.
Whitney Houston was a trailblazer.
Yeah.
Then you have Phyllis Hyman, who a lot of people don't know, but in the 70s and the late 70s and early 80s,
what a voice.
Song after song, and she was a Broadway performer, she was a model, and she was this person that had infinite possibilities. And unfortunately, she struggled with her mental health, and she ended up killing herself.
Yeah.
And for me, when I read the story of Phyllis Hyman, I think what could have been if she could have just lived past that moment she made that decision.
Yeah.
So Phyllis Hyman is in the book, and I want people to look at that beautiful photo and read a little bit about her and do maybe more research about her, because she deserves it.
Yes.
Then we go to Minnie Riperton, who died, unfortunately, of breast cancer. And she was one of the first celebrities to actually talk about cancer. She literally changed and saved lives because she came out and talked about her struggles with breast cancer. And she ultimately died of it. But look what she left behind. Not just this beautiful catalog of incredible music, but she also gave us the gift of Maya Rudolph, her daughter. Yeah. And so Minnie Riperton is an angel. But the celebrity story I'm going to talk to you about is Tina Turner.
Yes.
I got really close to interviewing Tina Turner in this book. Her team was really, her and her team, when I reached out to them, they were really excited about this idea.
Yes.
And so many celebrities weren't, but Tina's team was.
Interesting.
And I was like, will she do an interview? And they were like, we're going to try. Let's see how she's feeling. Yada, yada, yada. But in the interim, they were like, well, can we see the photos that you're thinking of using? And I sent them a bunch of photos, and they picked the photos that they wanted to use. And in my mind, that was Tina picking the photos that she wanted to use in the book. Of course, how she wanted to be represented.
Absolutely.
And then it turned out that I wasn't going to be able to do an interview with her because she wasn't up to it. And I was like devastated, but I was also happy because I knew from talking to the team that she knew I existed, and she knew that the book existed. And she was interested in somebody telling her story. Yes. And I was so moved by that, because Tina Turner is the living embodiment of never giving up. Of persevering no matter what,
and
of
resilience,
being a Black woman, of resilience, of being a Black woman, and changing at every turn, changing your circumstances to better yourself and to better your family. She's literally everything. And and there was a certain point, and I hadn't talked to them in a couple of months, that the team reached out to me and they were like, is the book done? Tina wants to see it.
Whoa.
And the book wasn't done yet. It was at the printers, but it hadn't come out yet.
Right.
So I didn't have a copy to send to them. But what I did was this: I sent them the PDF of the book.
Good for you.
So they got to see what I said about her and what the book looked like and who was included.
Oh my gosh.
Who stood beside her in this beautiful work. And so I hope that she got to see that before she passed away.
I know.
And so that Tina Turner interaction, which wasn't necessarily with her, but was with her and her team, was so important to me in the creation of this work, this book.
So you interviewed a lot of these living legends, some still living, some unfortunately passed. What did you learn from them in general, and how do you think that we as mere mortals could apply some of that special sauce that these women had? How could we apply that in our lives to be more impactful, more memorable, more confident, more iconic? How could we do that?
All of these women believed in themselves when no one else believed in them.
Mm-hmm.
They believed that they were special. They believed that they were talented. They believed if they were given the opportunity, they were going to kill it.
Yeah.
I got to interview Vanessa Williams. I got to interview Stephanie Mills, the iconic Stephanie Mills, the first Dorothy and the Wiz on Broadway. I got to interview Roberta Flack. I mean, and Roberta Flack, that was such an incredible interview because she had just had, talk about we're losing these icons, and that's why them being able to tell their story in their own voice is so important.
Yeah.
Roberta Flack had a stroke and still agreed to do an interview.
Wow.
I mean, and she wanted to be a part of this book, and she wanted to tell the story in her own words. And again, she chose the photos that are in the book of herself.
Wonderful.
So that's so big and important, and I understand the responsibility that I have when I talk about these people and when I put these books out because of interviews like that. But what I learned from all of them is tenacity, and perseverance, and believing in yourself. You can believe in yourself when everybody is telling you that you are fantastic, but you really have to believe in yourself when people are telling you you aren't.
Yes. So in your words then, what does it take to be legendary? Is that what it takes to be legendary? Tenacity and perseverance.
Tenacity, perseverance, talent.
True.
Meeting the challenge head on, belief in yourself.
Yeah.
I think belief in God or belief in a higher purpose.
Higher power. Yeah.
A higher power. All of those things I think you have to have to get to the top. They might not keep you there.
Yes.
But they serve you well on
the way up. And the last question. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this amazing interview, this epic time we're having together is coming to an end. But I must let you go because I'm sure you have other people to talk to.
Myself. Me. I'm going to talk to myself. I'm going to sit on the sofa in my bathrobe and talk to myself. That's what I'm doing today.
I love the bathrobe. I think it's a good look. I think it's, a signature.
Well, it's monogrammed. So
of course.
There you are.
There it is. Well, this is the signature, podcast question. It's called the Fab Five. And basically I'm asking you, what are your top 5 recommendations for living a beautiful and supremely fabulous life?
Read books. That's number one.
You got it.
I have always, from the time I was a little boy and my grandmother bought me a set of encyclopedias, I have been a voracious reader.
Good for you.
If I didn't know something, I grabbed the encyclopedia and I learned about it. As I got older, it was reading magazines. As I got older, it was reading books. When I got even older than that, it was collecting art books. I want to know something about art, architecture. I want to know something about fashion. I want to know something about design, interior design. I want to know something about everything. Books help you be curious, and they sate your curiosity. Read. Number two, get outside your bubble and your own personal comfort zone. Go do something that makes you scared.
Wow.
Makes you, for me, it could be, I'm not athletic at all. So I go horseback riding, or I go bowling, or I do something, or for me, it's going alone to a museum. And it could be a museum I know nothing about. It could be the Getty. It could be MoMA in New York. It could be the Writers Museum in Chicago.
Right.
I go do something that stretches your idea of who you are, and along the way, maybe learn something. Get out. Do something. Usually, 3. I want it to be public and I want it to be physical.
Oh, okay.
Number 3,
Yes.
have the uncomfortable conversation. That is
Mm,
something I actually learned from Cindy Crawford. She did a
really?
master class with Oprah, and
Yes.
she said, have the uncomfortable conversation. And
Okay.
it really is. It's like if somebody hurts your feelings, tell them they hurt your feelings. If you hurt somebody's feelings, have that conversation. Give
Yeah.
them the chance to tell you what you did and why, and then
Okay.
then you get to reply to it. If somebody owes you money, ask for it.
Yeah.
If you need something from somebody,
Yeah.
find that person that can give it to you and ask them for it.
Yeah.
Have the uncomfortable conversation. Pull the Band-Aid off and get it done.
I love that because I heard an interview the other day about a woman and she wrote a book and the essence was the book was essentially brag more. And for me, for example, I don't really talk about myself. I don't brag, but I think that's part of having an uncomfortable conversation. Bragging, telling people about your accomplishments. So
For
thank you for
you,
that.
that's uncomfortable. But
Yeah.
as you get better at it, as you do it more often, it will get comfortable. Like I'm really comfortable now with communicating what I need. I'm
Yeah.
really comfortable now with what my boundaries are.
Yes.
If something is a yes, it's a yes. If something is a no, it's a no. If something's
Right.
not right for me, unfortunately, that's not right for me.
Right.
I have to move on. Good
Right.
luck.
All right. Number 4.
Tell the people that you love them and why.
Okay.
I have been having like a little series of like health blips,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm figuring things out of, working with my doctors, blah, blah, blah. But when you
Mm-hmm.
start thinking about, and again, Tina Turner, and again, Roberta Flack, when you
Yeah.
start thinking about your own mortality, and I
Yeah.
think it piggybacks off of have the uncomfortable conversation, but
Yes.
these are comfortable conversations.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave this planet without letting the people that I love or the people that helped me or the people I'm thankful for
Yeah.
know that I'm thankful for them.
Wonderful.
Know that I love them and why do I love them? It's not just, oh, I love my mother. I love
Yeah.
my mother because. It's not,
Because.
oh, I love my best friend. I love my best friend because. It's not just,
Yeah.
oh, I'm thankful to you. I'm thankful to you because.
Um, I love it. And number 5, Marcellus, your Fab 5, number 5.
Put yourself first.
Oh,
Treat yourself. I mean, whatever putting yourself first means, do it. If
yeah.
it means taking some time to be alone with yourself, then do that. If it means having a spa day, then do that. If it means indulging in a chocolate fudge sundae, then do that. Put
Yes.
yourself first. So, especially for women, so often a woman is so many things before she's herself. She's a wife, she's a friend, she's a mother, she's a
Yeah.
daughter, she's all these other things. She's putting the needs and wants of other people before her own. Put
Right.
yourself first. Figure out what that means. It's a big, broad, huge statement. But what does it mean? I'm putting myself first in my career.
Yes.
Like, I know what I want to do and I'm pursuing it head on. I'm taking no prisoners. I'm
Yes.
doing finally what I want to do by putting myself first. I now know what it is I want to do. And it's no longer, I can't do that. I'm no longer living in self-doubt. I know I can do anything the fuck I want to do. Now
Yeah.
it's trying to find the team and the people around me who are going to help me do it. And now it's finding the time to do it. And now it's finding the motivation to like pick one thing and see it through, instead of having like 12 things in front of me and doing a little bit of it. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, today I'm going to do, it's like, no, okay, I want the books to become museum exhibitions. So for this
Oh.
3 months, I'm going to give that my whole all. I
Ooh,
want
I
each
love
book to
that.
have its own documentary. So after I'm done with the museum exhibitions, then we're going to really focus all our energies on that. Later this year, I'm going to start working on the 4th book. That will take time. So it is but I love work and I
Yes.
love what I'm doing. So
Yes.
that's putting myself first. That agenda that I have is putting myself first because these are the things that I love to do.
Marcellas, thank you so much for your time today, for your exuberant and epic presence on this podcast. I am so grateful to you and all that you have done and all that you will continue to do and more. You must promise me that you'll come back with your next iteration of fabulousness to talk to me and podcast community about everything that you're doing.
I promise. And the
Thank
next
you.
time I'm in New York, which will probably be June, we have to get together.
Please, you let me know.
Get together.
You let me know and we'll make something happen for sure. Thank you so much for your time. I adore you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. And we will see you again soon.
Thank you, beauty.
Ciao, gorgeous.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty, curated by Dr. Shirley Madeir, MD. Live beautifully and help make the world a more beautiful place.